Welcome to Change Mentors. I'm Denny Brownlee, hosting this today, but I also have a couple of very special people with me who will help facilitate our discussion today. First, I want to introduce Craig A. Stevens, and Craig is with Westbrook Stevens. In fact, he is the president of Westbrook Stevens. And if you would, Craig, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Hey there. Well, I do a lot of things. We help people go through change. When I say people, I mean organizations. So we help people with operational excellence. We call ourselves the Change Mentors.
And why is that?
Well, because I think that's what we do. We mentor people and help them through change. But we also add a little tour mentor in the process, because with every good mentor, there's a little bit of push and a little bit of pull.
Okay, and that can be torment to many people, I suppose.
Torment.
And again, also with us is Patricia Leonard, and she is the president of Patricia Leonard and Associates. Welcome, Patricia. Tell us about yourself.
The first thing you need to know is I wrote a book called Wearing High Heels in a Flip-Flop World, and I'm known as the High Heels Woman. I help individuals with their career, small business ideas. Turning can'ts into cans and dreams into plans is my work.
Nice. Do that. So would you say that again? That's kind of catchy. Say that again.
My work and my service that I provide to small businesses and individuals as a coach and a speaker is I turn can'ts into cans and dreams into plans.
Can'ts into cans and dreams into plans. I like that. And being that you're all into high heels, I guess it would make you upwardly mobile as well. So
yeah. That's good.
Yeah, and have sore feet at the end of the day. But I applaud you. But
we
welcome.
Look good.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You walk tall, and so we're glad to have both of you here today. And this together we make up the Change Mentors. So Craig, this was sort of your brainchild to begin with.
Well, before we get to me, I think you need to introduce yourself.
Oh,
yeah.
Me. I'm just a facilitator. I'm just the guy talking.
Oh, we want to know.
Oh, well, my name is Denny Brownlee, and my background comes more from the broadcasting end of things. I've done a lot of television and radio and some stage and so on. So I just crave attention, basically. But I guess I'm going to be the mentee more than anything, because as a business leader, I'm really not. But you guys are going to be teaching me, and along with the process, anyone listening in who wants to take their business acumen a little higher will benefit greatly. And who knows, I may actually learn something that sticks. So
I bet we all learned something, Denny.
Probably so. Probably so. All right. So back to Craig now. This was your brainchild. Just kind of unpack for us how this all came about.
Well, this has been 40 years of just experience and what is needed. And I find that a lot of new leaders have to be mentored. It's not, if you empower somebody, you don't just knight them with a sword and say, you're in charge of this, you're empowered. And so I thought that, well, this is a normal process to mentor people, to incubate leaders. That's really what we're doing. We're trying to incubate leaders. So as a manager in a large company, you have people that are maybe technical in nature, but they need to manage things. They need to lead things. In the words of John Maxwell, to just have growth, lead followers. People will do what you say, but to have explosive growth, then lead leaders. So how can we lead leaders if we don't incubate them and make them into better leaders? We're building excellent leaders in the process. Mm-hmm. But the reason I want to say something else too. So the reason Denny's here and the reason Pat's here is because they both have great things to share. Denny has a vast experience in helping people with his organization, and he has a lot of humor that he applies, and so this makes it natural. You want to make things fun. And also I want Denny to tell us more about that later on. And he also has this great background of being able to facilitate radio as a radio host and other things that he does. So he's a natural. And then Patricia, she is just an extraordinary person. You have to tell her more about your background eventually related to your HR experience and how you came about, because you're one of the first women HR managers at a large company. And that in itself is a big history. And we spent a lot of time working together. And when I say a lot of time, we spent some time working together on different projects.
Yes.
And Patricia's a natural. I mean,
Mhm.
she's just boils it down to what's necessary. But I don't know if I even got close to your question, Denny. So you may have to let me know if I
Well,
need.
well, pulling this together, and you did touch on that a little bit, but you just enlightened me a little bit about your background with Patricia. The two of you have worked together on things, and you mentioned an HR background. So Patricia, if you would tell us a little bit about what you brought to the table for Craig and how you two became a business working relationship.
Well, I think that we started out brainstorming, just thinking what could we do together to combine our skills, each of the skills we had. And as Craig said, I brought my human resource background. As a matter of fact, just a little bit about my background. I started in a corporation as a human resource professional when there were very few women. So that tells you how old I am. And I think it's funny because I see the recycling of everything in business again today. So like Craig mentioned, we're at this point that we're still trying to build leaders because even though the leadership is stronger than it was years ago when I was in human resources, it's changing. And in 2021, it's going to change significantly again. And I think sometimes individuals are put in positions and they're never given skills or systems or structures or processes of how to be a strong leader. So I think that's one of the things that I had the opportunity to do in corporate America. And Craig and I have worked in opportunities like that, helping leaders develop and understand the kind of skills that they need for the times that we're in and the changing businesses. So this is really an exciting time, I think, for leaders to step out. And I just wrote a blog recently, and it's about the feminine energy that's coming out. And it is not about men or women. It is about feminine energy that's needed, cooperation, working together, partnering up, just like we're doing on this podcast, is coming together and joining the expertise that each of us bring. And so I think as we move forward, and the things I learned in human resources was the value of talent development in business success.
It's all about sustainability. You know, in order to sustain your business, because everything goes through a life cycle. It starts off and it dies off. So in order to keep the sustainable future going, then you have to think in terms of who you're going to leave this to and who you're going to build up and who you're going to, that's how you're, in the words of the book, built to last. That's how your company's built to last, you know.
Now, I've heard it said, and I've heard it said to me, that all of us are leaders in some form or another. And let's face it, in a corporate world, there are leaders and there are followers. And I know that there's a little bit of cross-pollination there. Everybody has their department or whatever. Everybody's in charge of something, even if it's the very basic working in the mailroom, as it were. How far do you want to reach with your change mentoring? Do you stick with the upper management, middle management? Where do you want to be in this playing field?
All right, Pat, you want me to hit that first? Because it looks like you have something in your mind. So I'll hit it first, and then I'll let you close it off. So in my mind, the leadership and decision making is pushed down to the lowest possible level. So if you're a janitor working inside a office building, you have to be empowered and feel comfortable with yourself to do your job. And that might mean knocking on the president's door in the middle of the day even, and asking to get the garbage can. Well, that takes a little bit of confidence in order to take someone, maybe interrupt them, but at the same time, your company has to have a culture that allows this in order to move forward. So what level? It's at every level that empowerment is, but top down is important, because without top down, you don't have vision and other things. But the people below that has to fill in, because they'll know more than the president of the company on how to do their job. And if they don't, you're going to get the wrong person. And if they don't have the confidence to go in and lead, then you did something wrong. You built a bad culture. And so that's very important. Pat, I'm going to let you finish that thought off and correct me where I'm wrong.
No, I think I was reflecting back. I was a disruptor. So when I was in corporate America, I challenged
I don't
this.
believe that. No, I'm just kidding.
For those of you who know me, you'll know.
I've always been a disruptor, but nobody ever really appreciated
Denny,
it.
you and I make a great pair. But I and Craig, you're a disruptor.
Yeah, you just
I think
disrupted
it's
now.
important. I do think it's important that the top begin to understand that the systems, and look what's happened. We're all working where people can't see us now. We're working in our homes. This new decade has changed everything from the way it was. So we used to be able to watch our people as leaders. It's not about being a boss anymore. It's just like Craig was saying, it's much more about empowering every level to understand that they are critical to the success of the company. And that we can show that in ways other than just money. I think what we've normally thought is it's the pay that makes the difference, or the title. You can have a title with somebody or for somebody, and it still doesn't make them feel like they can do, like Craig was saying, go up to the president's office and ask for the garbage can. But I can tell you that if we empower every level, and Craig knew right away I was going to be this, every level of the organization, there is not one organization that will not be successful in the decade ahead. Systems and structures need to change in order to support that kind of an environment, that kind of culture, and that kind of empowerment.
Well, you mentioned
I want to add
feminine
something to
energy.
that, Denny.
Okay,
I want
go
to
ahead.
add something to that, Denny. And so, and you also have to be situational in how you apply this. So you can imagine, I think of the military. In some cases, a lot of people at the bottom and a couple of people, sergeants in charge of things is the right situation, right organizational structure for that. But, in other cases, you have situations where you need special forces. You have 5 people go in with 5 skills and they overlap. And the more of a knowledge worker they are, the more they've gotten their master's or PhD or something else, the more they expect to use it. So a bunch of high school kids is one thing, but when you have a whole group of professionals, then a lot of times we treat those professionals like the high school kids that don't really know anything and have to be handheld. So it's really situational on how you apply that leadership, like the situational leadership model.
Mm-hmm. Now we're in a, as you mentioned, a kind of a unique situation here in 2020 that I hope some of it goes back to what we used to call normal, but I also realize that, as you were saying, some things have changed and have made a permanent change. You mentioned, Patricia, you mentioned the feminine energy. The first thing I think of when I hear that is a more cooperative spirit as opposed to a, my way or the highway mentality. If that's correct, go ahead with it. But would you expand on that, especially in this climate that we are changing in 2021?
You picked it up exactly. That is exactly how it is. It is not about masculine and feminine. It is not about titles. It's much more about the energy that someone brings in. And feminine energy, yes, you're right. It's known as more nurturing kind of energy. Not about a woman, but men and women both have this kind of energy. And those are the things that we're needing as we move forward, because the truth is, the most impact can be made in a business at the human element, not the title, not the role that they play or anything. The human element is so key. And this is the generation that we're moving into, that experiential. I walked into Lowe's the other day, and the very first moment I walked in, someone said, "Welcome to Lowe's, how can I help you?" And right away, my experience was that wow, I like this place. And so I think that we're moving into the blending of the more mature workforce and the younger workforce. It's going to be more about experiential, not so much what we say, not so much the word or the title we have. It's much more about the experience we get in working in that organization or working for that person. Does that make sense to you, Denny? Is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I see what you're saying is that, in this nurturing process, part of mentoring people is mentoring from that perspective of coming alongside and working with, and not just mandating, here's how it's going to be.
Exactly. That is it. The whole thing is about walking beside and empowering someone to know that I value what you've got to bring to the organization, and I value your opinion. And we haven't always thought like that in organizations. A lot of times it's always been the top leadership. And, can I tell a quick story that happened?
Let's hold off the story for our next little blip, because we're about to run out of time.
Oh,
with
are
this
we?
one.
Oh my gosh. It's about
we'll
leadership. It's about how leadership changed an organization.
We're about to have to go into a station identification. So
You've always wanted to say that, haven't you?
That's right.
We'll return right after this.
This mentor, this is fabulous. Mentoring,
right.
so important.
So we'll cut off the record, and then we'll go into, we'll come back in.
Okay.
And Denny, you'll have to do that.
Oh, that's right.
Good. You're the host, Denny.